Vasia, once again I implore you, let us redirect our conversation. You made a promise to me, remember? You swore not to speak ill of my son. I'm not disparaging him. I'm simply speaking the truth. He is completely dependent on you, clinging to your back like a burden, swinging his legs to and fro. And yet, you continue to grin and wave like a madman. Don't you realize you're spoiling him rotten? Vasia, I'm telling you one last time, this discussion is closed. My son is still a student. As long as he is pursuing his studies, I will support him. I do not need your permission for that. Stacia was on the verge of shouting. Am I not allowed to have a say in this matter? Or are you only willing to listen to praises? No, my dear, you must take my opinion into account. Vasily retorted, his voice rising. No, I won't. If you don't keep quiet, I'm leaving right now. Just because you've got whiskey on your mind doesn't mean you can rile me up. Again. 2 weeks ago, you promised me that we would never broach this topic again. Have you forgotten? Don't you remember? I made a promise. How can I stand idly by when that little rascal is taking advantage of you? You do anything for him, even sell your underwear, and he doesn't even appreciate it. Who told you that he doesn't appreciate my efforts? Lyosha loves me dearly. He expresses his gratitude for everything I do. I'll say it once more, please keep silent. This conversation is over. Stacia abruptly ended the argument and headed to the kitchen. It's practically impossible to avoid a quarrel with an irate man when you're both cooped up in a tiny studio apartment. Naturally, Vasia trailed behind her. He was driven by a misguided sense of righteousness, sincerely believing he was being helpful. Stacia, won't you at least hear me out? Don't you think I deserve that much? He implored. Have at least one child and raise it, then come talk to me. Right now, your words are just the meaningless clatter of a jealous man, she retorted. It was a risky move. Vasily did have a daughter from his previous marriage, but he hadn't seen her in 7 years, ever since her mother moved to a different city. They had only been together for 2 years, and the daughter had been just 6 months old when they split. Jealous? You think I'm envious of your milkman? What kind of nonsense is that? He asked, genuinely taken aback. Of course you're jealous. He's only 19 and has everything you don't. She shot back. Oh yeah, his mom rents his apartment and tops up his car daily. That's something I should be envious of, he replied, feigning surprise. Well, apparently you are. You know better. Otherwise, I can't fathom why you're so riled up. I'm merely trying to point out that you're spoiling him, Vasia explained. I want to, and I spoil him. He's my only child. I can afford it. As if you aren't already aware, Vasia sarcastically quipped. It appeared that the exchange began discussing another matter entirely. Stacia couldn't comprehend why Vasily was once again teasing her about Lyosha. It was trivial. They seemed to be just sitting there, idly watching the television. A commercial for some sort of exercise machine was airing. Vasia mentioned how beneficial it would be for them to own one. He even discovered a similar model at a reasonable price on Avito. Stacia didn't seem opposed to the idea, but she reminded her roommate. Let's hold off for now and consider it later. Remember, I requested that we refrain from making any major purchases until I receive my salary. Perhaps I'll have to borrow the funds from you. In truth, she hadn't yet asked Vasia for a single penny, but it seemed as though he believed he had an opportunity to confront her. Rarely did she ever receive her paycheck late, and this was one such instance. Tasia was employed as a content manager for 2 online retail platforms. Rarely did she venture outside, except for essential trips to the store. Most of her time was spent engrossed in her work. She would sit silently at her laptop, either typing away or diligently reviewing material. Nevertheless, her efforts were duly rewarded, as she received a generous salary. In fact, her earnings surpassed Vasia's by 1.5 times. While it wasn't an exorbitant amount, it afforded her the ability to rent an apartment and indulge in well-prepared meals. Moreover, she could provide for her son with relative ease. Stas, don't you reckon that if finances are tight, someone could take up a part-time gig? Inquired a concerned acquaintance. Someone like Lyosha, Stasia retorted, with clear disapproval. I've made it abundantly clear that I wholeheartedly disagree. I sent him to university to acquire an education, not to become a free cashier baller. But he's a grown man. He should realize that money doesn't appear out of thin air, argued the acquaintance. He comprehends it perfectly fine without your assistance. Stasia snapped back. No, he doesn't, and he won't grasp it as long as you continue to hand it to him on a silver platter. The acquaintance retaliated. That's none of your concern. I've had enough of your interference. It's high time you let it go. Stasia exclaimed, her frustration palpable. Their debate rumbled on for a good 30 minutes more before the topic subtly shifted. And another thing, your cat drives me up the wall. That animal sheds like crazy. And you never bother to clean up after him. Look, I tidy up twice a week. That's as much as I can manage. You're always here, aren't you? Is it really that tough to grab a broom or a mop once in a while? I'm not just lounging around at home. I'm working and bringing in cash. And just for the record, earning more than some. Vasia's expression soured at the remark. The very idea that his partner outturned him was infuriating enough, but Stasia's sneering tone just added fuel to the fire. What, so I'm less of a man now, is that it? That's not what I said. You're really getting on my nerves. Wouldn't it be nice if I could enjoy some pristine living space too, if someone else pitched in more? I'm just pointing out that cleaning isn't solely a woman's duty. Did I ever say it was only up to the woman? Well, no, you didn't say it outright, but how many times have you actually cleaned our place since we moved in together? 0. And just in case you forgot, we've been sharing this space for half a year now. Vasily pondered momentarily, racking his brain to ascertain the veracity of Stasia's claim. It appeared that this time, she had not resorted to deception. True enough, he had surreptitiously shifted the responsibility of household chores onto her, blissfully ignorant of his own actions. Nevertheless, this realization did not dampen his enthusiasm. Oh, we're such delicate little beings, fretting over something as trivial as sweeping and mopping the floor, he exclaimed sarcastically, deeming it the grand tragedy of the century. And I'll have you know, I don't litter either. Unfazed by Stasia's claims, he continued his impassioned retort. Do you expect me to tirelessly navigate the entire house armed with a cloth, cleaning the windows twice weekly and the floors twice daily? I made it abundantly clear from the start that such occurrences would never come to pass when we embarked on this cohabitation. Taisha had once given Vasily a heads up that cleaning wasn't really her thing when he proposed she move in with him. Right off the bat, she mentioned she'd only clean twice a week on set days, with some allowance for holidays. For the rest, she was out. I didn't know your cat was gonna sprinkle sawdust all over the place, Vasily exclaimed. They aren't. Do you have a microscope glued to your eyes? Retorted Stasia. And quit shouting, you're terrifying Gosha. He's already hiding under the couch. The poor cat peeked out from his hiding spot, visibly shaken. Oh, we're a fine pair, aren't we? Vasily scoffed disdainfully. You can't handle raising a cat or a son. One prowls and yowls at night, and the other drains his mother dry without a second thought. There you go again, picking on him. Maybe you should go out for a bit, catch some fresh air. I'm starting to think about grabbing a knife. Stacy snapped, her patience wearing thin. I'm too tired for that, and I'm not budging. This is my space. He declared stubbornly. Yeah, well, don't forget we split the rent, she shot back. Listen, I was here before you. That makes it mine. Fine then, tomorrow, I'm moving back in with my son. Stacy shouted, storming into the bathroom and slamming the door. Go to hell? Like anyone wants you at 42. How? Vasily shouted after her. The walls of their shared apartments seemed to shudder under the strain of their heated argument, while Gosha remained securely tucked away, waiting for the storm to pass. She couldn't handle Vasily's constant nagging anymore. Lately, he'd been acting quite erratic, and to think, their story had started out so wonderfully. Stasia hailed from a quaint little town. It was there she fell in love, tied the knot, welcomed a son, and eventually untied it all with a divorce. Their marriage barely made it to the 5-year mark. Post-divorce, she took on the role of a single mom, raising her boy all by herself. Her ex relocated to another city, but was diligent about sending child support until their son hit 18. When Lyosha finished high school, he had his sights set on college. His mom couldn't have been happier. She didn't have the chance to get a degree herself, so she was all in on giving him a shot at a brighter future. She promised to cover all the expenses. That summer, she accompanied him to the city where he'd be starting his studies. Admission exams, not a worry. He was accepted based on his stellar grades, graduating with top honors. Stasia wanted to make sure he was settled in comfortably in his new home. No, she wasn't playing mama bear, shielding her son. But she understood that transitioning from the wilderness to a bustling city was bound to be quite the experience. Plus, she was curious to see his future dwelling. Lyosha wasn't keen on settling down in a dorm, so he convinced his mother to find them an apartment. Initially, he entertained the idea of sharing it with his newfound buddies. But he eventually hatched a brilliant plan. Mom, stay here with me. Just look at how gorgeous the city is. There's so much to explore. Our village doesn't offer nearly as much. Here, you'll find real life. You can work from anywhere, and this way, we can be together. The idea crossed her mind. Why not? She could keep an eye on her son, have more fun than being stuck at home, and their apartment back in their hometown wasn't going anywhere. On weekends, they ventured to different cafes and sampled a variety of dishes. They occasionally went to the movies, and one time, her mom even splurged on theater tickets. It was her first time there, and they both loved it. That's where they encountered Vasily. He was seated next to them with a friend of his. He seemed quite the aficionado of the arts. They struck up a conversation, got acquainted, and after the performance, they all decided to head to a cafe together. In that quaint little cafe, Vasya and Stasia swapped contact details. Soon after, he invited her for a coffee date, and then another, sparking a series of outings. Their casual meetings blossomed over the months into a serious relationship, leading Vasily to nobly suggest they move in together. Stasia was hesitant about leaving her son. Their time together was filled with laughter and cherished moments. Yet the idea of all three sharing one space didn't seem quite right. Mom, I'll be okay. Don't fret over me, Lyosha reassured her as he helped her with her luggage. At the front door, Vasya awaited in his vehicle, ready to start their new chapter together. I'm truly sorry to have to go, Stasia expressed, sadness tinting her voice. We're still in the same town, we'll catch up regularly. Vasya responded, trying to soothe her worries. All right, that's a promise. Stasia replied, a small smile playing on her lips as they set off. Stasia departed, yet she remained in the apartment with her son. At least initially, she immersed herself in the realm of domesticity alongside Vasya, all the while keeping Lyosha in mind. Once a week, she would pay him a visit and cook enough food to sustain him for the week, ensuring her son wouldn't go hungry. In reality, he was capable of fending for himself, but she derived satisfaction from lending a hand in this regard. Occasionally, she entertained the notion that her absence left her son feeling lonesome. However, Lyoshka reassured her that he was content. He found companionship, spending evenings with friends. All in all, there was no time for boredom. The first semester breezed by subtly, Or rather, that was the impression left following the conclusion of exams. For the summer, Lyosha secured a part-time position as a stocker in a supermarket. Though his earnings were modest, they provided sufficient pocket money, especially since he had a girlfriend who required financial attention. Summer eventually drew to a close, giving way to the start of the school term. Consequently, the part-time gig had to be relinquished to accommodate the rigorous demands of challenging subjects. His mother made it clear from the outset that she had no intentions of footing the bill for exams and coursework. Thus, Lyosha had to brace himself to conquer the formidable realm of academia. Everything appeared to be nearly ideal until the very first instance she had an argument with Vasia concerning Leshka. While her son was employed part-time, he scarcely requested money from his mother, granting her the ability to make several beneficial purchases for their home. However, as soon as school commenced, the majority of her funds began flowing towards her son once again. Stasia herself couldn't quite comprehend why Vasia abruptly became infuriated with her Lyosha. That night, they engaged in a substantial dispute. He nearly drove her to the edge of a nervous breakdown, causing her heart to ache, necessitating the consumption of some Corvalol for relief. After that altercation, she was prepared to depart, but Vasia implored her for forgiveness. Come morning, he offered his sincere apologies, admitting his wrongdoing and expressing remorse for his words, assuring her it wouldn't happen again. And she believed him. His sincerity was truly convincing. She was certain that the conflict had been resolved. That is, until this very evening, when he once again resorted to his usual antics. That evening, she remained confined to the bathroom. She tossed a towel into the frosty tub, positioned a hand towel beneath her head, and drifted off. Merely a few hours had passed before she was roused by the persistent scratching of Gosha at the door, desperate to reach his litter box. Stasia opened the door to let him in, and then secured it shut. Together, they slumbered in the bathroom. Come morning, she awoke to find Vasia had already left the premises. He had set off for work without so much as rinsing his face or brushing his teeth. Fortunately, at least the bathroom was unoccupied. Without a moment's hesitation, Stasia swiftly began repacking her belongings into her luggage, informing her son of her decision to return to this place. Why has everything turned sour? Lyosha inquired with a heavy heart. He felt a pang of sorrow upon hearing the disheartened tone in his mother's voice over the phone. To him, it appeared that his mother had at last stumbled upon her joy. Indeed, it's dreadful. I can't bear living with him any longer. All right, I'm at school right now, but I'll catch up with you this evening. Should I skip out early and give you a hand with your move? No need, I'll grab a taxi. I've got this, but thanks for offering. After organizing her possessions, Stasia carefully packed the freshly purchased bread maker and food processor into boxes. She didn't forget the new bed sheets either, reasoning that they would always be useful around the house. Damn, it was a real shame to hear that. Why on earth did she confess to him about gaining those extra pounds? Is she out of her mind? So many hurtful words were exchanged on that dreadful evening. There she was, busy organizing her luggage at home, when Vasia finally woke up and messaged her. Good morning. Good morning. It's not good at Oli, Stasia, I'm sorry. I couldn't care less. I made a mistake. I'm sorry for hurting you. It's no longer my concern. I'm leaving. Where are you going? To my son's place. But why? You told me you loved me just yesterday. I don't love you anymore, Stasia replied, and promptly added him to her private list. In the evening, Vasily came back to an empty flat. Stuff was scattered everywhere. Sawdust was strewn across the floor, and the kitchen was a total disaster. It looked like a hurricane had blown through the place. Stasia hadn't lifted a finger to tidy up. Seemed like she was trying to jog his memory on how to do it himself for once. He felt melancholic, yet he had to grab a cloth to clean up the chaos. Proud Vasily couldn't face the prospect of humbling himself once more to beg for forgiveness. But Stasia seemed untroubled. She was snug at home with her son. They decided to order pizza for dinner, streamed a movie, and reveled in each other's presence. Naturally, a heaviness lingered in her heart. But with a loved one nearby, it felt more bearable. "Glad you're back." Lyoshka beamed at her. "I missed you. You little rascal, and you didn't even admit it." His mother playfully chided, planting a kiss on his forehead. Thus concluded the fleeting affair between Stasia and Vasily. For no one has the right to say a bad word about someone else's children, nor should anyone dare to hurt a mother's tender emotions. Sadly, Vasily never grasped this truth.